Hello everyone, welcome to the Redesigning School Counseling webinar for Renewal Schools. The focus of this webinar is root causes. My name is Sue Reynolds and I am the president of the American Student Achievement Institute. Okay, so here's today's agenda. We'll begin like we always do with a very quick review. Then we'll focus on this month's topic, which is root causes. We'll walk through the root causes meetings. We'll talk about the tasks that we're doing this month and also the rubric items for those tasks. And then we'll get online and make sure that you understand where to access the resources in the online system. So very quick review. First of all, our beliefs. Just a reminder that in RSC we believe that school counseling programs help students make sound choices in areas that impact academic success. This is just another way to say the same thing. So we believe that when students are involved in sound guidance and counseling programs, they make better choices in areas that impact achievement, and that as a result of that, achievement goes up. And of course, we have research now that shows that schools that are participating in RSC have higher scores on the state test in both math and language arts, and we think this is why. So when we're designing our program, we started out by looking at what are the school's achievement goals, then what choices do kids need to make in order to reach those goals, and then we'll start looking at how to design a school counseling program that will help kids make those choices. Okay, in terms of the process, the first thing we did was get ready, and we put together a steering team. You collected data, you did some self-studies, and put together your advisory councils, which I've been hearing from schools have been wonderful. And then as a renewal school, we went to update our vision statement. Then we looked at updating our our program goals. So these are the, 30, 40, maybe 70 different things, choices that we want kids to make throughout the time in our school. And then last month we narrowed that list down and we said, okay, we have all of these goals, but which are the goals that we really want to hit hard next year and really want to put extra time and energy into? So we expanded our resources to get that time and energy, and then we identified a small number of priority goals. Then this month, what we're doing is looking at root causes. And what this is the reasons that kids maybe aren't making the choices that we want them to make. So the reasons might be that they don't have the knowledge that they need to make that choice, or they don't have an opportunity that they need to make the choice, or they have a personal or social issue that's getting in the way of them making the choices that we want them to make. So in this step, we're going to look at a ton of data, and your advisory council will also plow through all that data to discover the reason why kids aren't making those choices. So this is a really important step. It explains the why. Okay, and then next month, once we know the why, then we can fix it. Then we'll look for activities to not only help kids make all of the choices that are part of our goals, but specifically to really focus on the whys for the priority goals. Okay, and then finally, after the advisory council is finished with their meetings, the school counselors will further develop the program in terms of lesson plans and an annual calendar and a budget and that kind of thing. Okay, so let me see if we have any questions right here. And I'm not seeing any hands up. And I'm not seeing any questions there. So very good. So we will go on. So this month's task is root causes, and so in this webinar we're preparing you to facilitate this discussion with your advisory council. So for this meeting there is a pre-meeting mailing or an email, and what we want to do is provide your advisory council with all of this data, give them a chance to look through the data and to identify areas that they think may be interfering with the key choices that you want kids to make, the priority choices. In the past when we've done this, we have mailed paper versions of all the data to the advisory council. Last year we switched to everything electronic, so this is a pre-meeting email, and this is how it works. So basically we're sending with the click of one button an email to all of your advisory council members. And I want to just walk through what that email says. So basically we're saying, at this meeting we're going to identify our root causes, and it explains a little bit about what a root cause is. And then it talks about, as a reminder, our priority goals are to do, these things. And the computer, the system, will take your priority goals that you've entered and plop them into this email. So you won't have to type anything in here. Just make sure your priority goals are the way that you want them to be, and then the computer will auto-populate them into this email. Okay, and then it goes on to explain that our students may not be making these choices because, and this is what we just said, they're lacking knowledge, there's a personal or social issue, or they don't have the opportunity. And then to save time at our next meeting, please complete the steps listed below in the instructions, and then thanks for your help. So that's kind of the intro to the email and the different steps. So here's the instruction. Open each of the root cause data reports listed below. While these reports do not contain any individual data, they do contain data that some may consider sensitive and not be shared with the public. So when you set up this email, you'll have the option of putting on just student choice questions, but you can also choose to put on the other question sets. And so, we're just wanting to say to the advisory council, we would appreciate it if we didn't, share this with the public because some of it may be sensitive. But also we wanted to let them know that there is no individual student data in this. Okay, so as step 2, as you read each of the reports, ask yourself, what could be keeping our students from making the choices that we identified as our priority goals? And then when you find an answer choice, please write the following on a sticky note. This is a possible root cause. So on the sticky note, they're going to write the priority goal that they think that the root cause is impacting, the report title that they got the data from, so it would be the student choice report or the guidance report or counseling report, and then what the root cause is, what they think is interfering, and then their initials. So, and then in the next part of the email, we give them some examples. So here's 3 sticky sheets, and this is what they'll look like. So the priority goal is to increase the percentage who enroll in AP. The report that they got the data off of was guidance. The root cause is that 50% of the kids don't even know if the school offers college level courses. So obviously that's going to be a root cause. And then their initials. So here's another one, same priority goal, increase percentage who enrolled in AP. This time we're getting something from the student assistance report or the counseling report. And the cause is 50% report that stress is interfering with learning. So that definitely would be a root cause for that. And then finally, this is an opportunity goal, and we're reporting that students do not have the opportunity to take an AP course. So, and then finally, we're saying to folks, please bring all of your sticky notes to the next advisory council meeting. Okay. At the bottom of the email, then, there are links to your school's data. Everybody gets the guidance needs report, which is a student, everybody gets the, the guidance needs report, which is the student knowledge. And then you may also decide to share with your council the student assistance needs or the student opportunities report. So, so there's 3 different kinds of data they can get, the knowledge, the personal social issues, and the opportunities. Then, in the final part, we ask folks to do a drill down in one area that's of interest to them. So they would open one of the student group reports, so they'll click on that link, and that will bring up the disaggregated or the drill down reports, and which may be gender or ethnicity, race, ethnicity, or free and reduced lunch. So, and then we're asking them, at least one of those drill down reports, look at that to see further, is there a specific group of students that's not making this choice, or that has a guidance need or a personal social issue at a different rate than their peers. So this is where we're identifying the guidance gaps. And one of the requirements for both the Indiana Gold Star and the ASCA ramp is to implement guidance gap activities, things that are going to close the guidance gap. So what we want to know is if students don't know that the school provides college-level courses, is there a gap there? Is it that the white affluent kids do know this, but the students of color, free and reduced lunch kids don't know that is available? So any rate, so we're hoping that among your entire council that all of these gap reports, all of the drill down reports will get looked at. Someone will be interested in, well, what are the boys doing? And someone will also be interested in, well, what are the Hispanic students? What kind of information do they have? Anyway, so that's that part. So then I'm going to go back one screen. They're going to bring these sticky notes to the meeting, and this will shorten your meeting time considerably. Some people at home will just put a few minutes into this, but the data is so compelling. What we hear often is that people are spending 2 or 3 hours just pawing through all that data because there's so many interesting stories in that data. Okay, so before the meeting, you'll need to set up that email. Let me go ahead and show you this. So we're going to, in the step 3 there that says send the automated mailing to the advisory council, you'll just click on this enter edit, and then you'll get the first step which is to select the reports to share, and the guidance needs data, that everybody gets that. But then you can decide, do I also want to share the student assistance needs? Do I want to share the opportunities that our school provides? So I would take a look at those reports and then decide if you want to share it. I know that in one school where I was an educator, we had done a study that included some teen pregnancy data, not individual student data, but group data. And our administrator in that school did not want the public to know that we had an issue with teen pregnancy. So some of that data, I don't think on this survey we asked that question about teen pregnancy, but there may be some questions that you find sensitive. So go in and take a look at the questions, and then decide you want to include them in the data that your council is going to look at. Same thing with the student opportunities. If you're a school that doesn't provide many opportunities for students, guidance opportunities, you might look at that 2 different ways. One is you may not want people to know that your school doesn't provide guidance opportunities for kids. But on the other hand, that may be a wonderful thing to help your advisory council understand. Because then they'll become advocates. Well, why not? Well, let's get the counselors more time. Let's get them, whatever they need, support staff, or whatever they need in order to be able to provide that. So the guidance needs questions and the student assistance questions came from the student survey. The student opportunities came from the counselor survey, and you'll have a chance to update that as we go through. The other thing that we want to have in our database is who is the person who's making this decision. Then if anything, if something ever comes to question, we can say, well, yeah, Brian Mitchell was the person that directed us to put this information on the email. Okay, so also in the setup, you're able to click this icon here or link here that says Advisory Council. And that will allow you to just go in and clean up the Advisory Council members and the email addresses before this email goes out. And then in the last section, as you are setting up this email, whoops, come back. As you are setting up the email, we give you a chance to see what the email is going to look like. So you can click this link here that says this message. That'll open up the email so you can see it. And then also we wanted you to verify that you understand that all advisory council members with valid email addresses in the council roster are going to get this message, and that you understand that when you send this email, you are enabling your advisory council members to view group data, no individual student data, for reports that are checked above. So, okay, and then you just, again, we want to know who is authorizing us to send out this email, and then we'll send the email. So, okay. So let's look then at some examples of how we find that data in the, how we find stories in the data. Okay, so let's say our primary goal is to increase the percentage of 12th graders who apply for merit-based financial aid. So we've looked at the data, we're upset because our 12th graders are not applying for merit-based financial aid, and we're trying to figure out now why. That is one of our primary goals. So we're looking at the data, and the first report we're looking at is the guidance needs report. And as we're looking at that report, we're seeing that there's a question that says, do you know how to find and apply for merit-based financial aid? And 61% of the students have said no. So this tells us we have a knowledge issue. Kids don't know how to find merit-based financial aid. And notice that this is data for all students, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And immediately when I see that data, I'm thinking, oh, was it just the 12th graders? Just the 12th? Is it the 12th graders that don't know? Or, you know, maybe it's the 9th graders that don't know, but by the time they get the 12th grade, they do know. So already I'm starting to think, oh, I probably want to look at a grade level drill down report to see exactly which grade levels it is. If I had a different hat on, if I were a leader in the Hispanic community, I might be wondering, well, you know, is it all kids that don't know this, or is it the Hispanic kids that don't know this at an even higher level? So depending on your hat and your interest, you know, those drill down reports kind of become interesting. So, but this is, you know, one story in the data around that, why kids aren't making that choice. So this is the opportunity report, and in the opportunity report that the counselors filled out, one of the opportunities was that students had the opportunity to obtain merit-based financial aid applications. So this data is really important because this is telling me, yeah, kids have the opportunity, they're just not doing it. So because 100% of the kids have that opportunity. So that's important information to know. If we hadn't given kids that opportunity, then it would be an opportunity issue as well as a knowledge issue. Okay. Then the other thing that you might look at is, do kids have personal or social issues that may be impacting this choice? So I'm looking, you know, through this is the fact that that 1 out of 5, almost 1 out of 5 students says that they have trouble controlling their anger, or that 3%, you know, are fighting, you know, or that a certain percent have an issue with drugs and alcohol. So is there anything in here that would also interfere with the kids' ability to find and apply for merit-based financial aid? Okay, then we can start looking at the guidance gaps. And again, usually as people are looking at the data, depending on what hat they're wearing, they get really curious about which kids are not making these choices. So for me personally, I wanted to, you know, my light bulb that went off immediately was a grade level. And for somebody else, it might be the ethnicity. So here are all the different ways, all the different reports that people can get, all the different drill down reports. So I've got grade level drill down, and then I can drill down by gender, race and ethnicity, lunch program status, if they're free and reduced lunch. If they're enrolled in 21st Century Scholars, I know at the state level, the people that direct and manage the 21st Century Scholars program love to look at this data. Do they have an IEP, so are they special ed or not? Have their parents been to college? And then their typical grades. This is kind of interesting too. This is something I always like to look at. in terms of, do kids who get D's and F's know that there's merit-based financial aid available, and how they might apply for it? Because if they think that they can't afford post-secondary, maybe that's why they're not enrolling in rigorous courses, or all that stuff as well. So at any rate, okay, so here's a typical drill down report, and this is a real school's data, by the way. So the question on the survey was, do you know how to find and apply for merit-based financial aid? And look at the data here. The percentage that said yes in 9th grade was just 4%. I'm not too worried about that, because in 9th grade they're not applying for merit-based financial aid. So and I haven't put it in my guidance curriculum yet. So 10th grade 16%, 11th grade 16%. Most schools will put merit-based financial aid information into their 11th grade or 12th grade curriculum. In this school, it must have been at the beginning of 12th grade, because we can see this jump here. But again, if this were me, I'd be saying 47%. I want this to be 100%. So I would still feel that I needed to address this. But you can see where the jump is, and if I can look at this and see, okay, right before 12th grade, at the beginning of 12th grade is where I covered this in my guidance curriculum, then it's understandable why I have that jump. Okay, so that's a drill down report. And then somebody else might be interested in free and reduced lunch. And we can see that I don't have as much of a gap here. 18% of the kids who are on free and reduced lunch versus 21% of paid lunch. In a lot of schools, we see 15% gaps on this question. And that really tells us that somehow the affluent kids are getting the information about merit-based financial aid, but the less affluent kids are not. So again, very interesting stories in the data. And then here's the drill down by report card grades, self-reported report card grades. And you can see, as I would have guessed, that the kids who get A's and B's know about merit-based financial aid, where kids who have lower grades tend to not receive that information for whatever reason. So, and again, we in our program, we thought that all kids needed to know that. So, I guess when you look at the data, the question is always, is this okay? And if it's not okay, then it's an area to work on. Okay, so let's look at the meeting for walkthrough. Grab a PowerPoint and into a different PowerPoint. Okay, so the meeting for walkthrough, we are welcoming everyone. Today's agenda: review, an introduction to root causes, and then the root cause analysis, and then I'm just real quick looking ahead what comes next. So here's the review. Then I'll just kind of flip through these slides. This slide I like with the advisory council. It just kind of reminds people we've done a lot of work, and your council should be very proud of all the input that they gave you to come up with these products. And then today the input will help you to identify your root causes, and then next month activities. Okay, so this is the introduction to root causes. So today's question is, why aren't students making sound choices for each of our priority goals? And then we're just reminding people, after we know the why, then next month we'll talk about the what are we going to do about it, the activities. So on this slide you would have dropped in your priority goals. So it might be that the student group is all students. The choice that you want students to make is to complete a 4-year high school course plan. You've got your baseline data in there, and then what you want the data to be, your target data. So what we're going to check as part of our root cause analysis is the students have the knowledge they need, personal social issues, are there personal social issues that are interfering, and do they have opportunities? So we'll be looking for clues in the data. So it might be that there's clues in the guidance reports about the knowledge that kids have. So the reports are going to look like this. So, I know where to find a career interest inventory. Yes, no, don't know. It might be that students are lacking opportunities. Students have the opportunity to take a career interest inventory at school. This is from the counselor survey report. Or there might be social personal issues that are interfering with kids' ability to make those choices. So as we do the root cause analysis, this is what we'll do. With our advisory council, we're using a process that's called a Delphi consensus building model. The steps of a Delphi consensus building model are to individually do a data analysis, then to come up with a small group consensus, and then large group consensus. So the individual data analysis we've already done. The advisory council did that at home. They wrote their thoughts on the sticky sheets, and they brought those sticky sheets with them. So that part of the analysis is finished. So the sticky notes that everybody brought with them include this information. What is the priority goal? What report did they get the data off of? What do they see being the root cause? And then their initials. Okay, so our next step then is to do the small group discussion, and here's how that's going to work. We will break the advisory council into small groups with maybe 3 to 5 people in each small group, and the small group has a poster for each of your group priority concerns, priority goals. So if your school had 3 priority goals, each small group has 3 of these posters. And on each poster, the priority goal is written at the top of the poster. So 3 goals, 3 posters with a different priority goal on the top of each poster. Then what we're asking your council members to do is to take those sticky notes and just put them in the right column. So those columns, let me show you what that poster looks like. So you can see that. So those columns say guidance, and then opportunities, and then student assistance. So they've put the sticky notes in the right areas. Okay, so then we're saying after the sticky notes are up, then discuss the areas that you believe may be root causes. So what knowledge don't kids have? What personal social issues are getting in the way? What opportunities do they not have? And then with that small group, come to consensus. What are the 1 to 3 root causes, small number of root causes for each of the priority goals that you think are getting in the way? And then there's a couple places where the discussion can go askew. So we want to ask folks to adhere to these tips. Please don't spend any time talking about the following, and then we'll talk about these at our next meeting. We're not really worried right now about why the root cause exists. We just want to know that it does. And then we don't want to worry right now about how to fix the root cause. We'll do that at our next meeting. And then we realize that as we're discussing these root causes, that there may be an activity that pops into your head. If that happens, we're going to park that activity on the activity parking lot so we can bring it back to the next meeting. So here's what the activity parking lot looked like. And so if an activity pops into their head, they would just go to this poster which you've posted up on the wall, and they're going to write down the root cause and then the possible activity that they want to bring back to our next meeting. Okay, so after the small groups have had a chance to come up with what they think the root causes are, then we go to large group, and for each priority goal, so we're going to take 1 priority goal at a time, and we're going to say, okay, for your small group, share 1 of the root causes that you think may be impacting our first goal. And then, the first group would share 1 of their root causes, then the next group would share 1 of their root causes, and they go around and come back to the first group. Do you have another root cause? And then they'll share something that hasn't been shared yet. We really want to encourage you to do 1 root cause per group, because that will give all the groups a chance to talk. If the first group shares all the root causes, you could exhaust all of them, and then nobody else would get the talk. So 1 at a time. And also in this report out, we strongly encourage the facilitator to say to everybody, please start your statement with, we believe 1 root cause for this priority goal might be that. And then their response, what comes after that, should be short, 3 to 5 words. We believe one root cause for this priority goal might be that that students don't have the opportunity, that's more than 3 to 5 words, but really short, students don't have the opportunity to take career interest inventory. So what tends to happen in this discussion is that when groups report out, instead of making a really short statement, they'll go on for hours about the rationale for why they think this is a root cause and what they think we should do about it. And so we really want this to cut this statement short. So so anyway, so we're trying to set up this discussion so each of the root causes ends up being a short statement. Okay, then we're saying to the advisory council members, as each of the root causes is shared, please record it on the appropriate Instagraph sheet. So if there's 3 priority goals, each person has 3 Instagraph Prep sheets, and at the top you would have written on a different priority goal on the top of each of those sheets before you make copies. Okay, so and then also somebody on your steering team has a poster of this as a Instagraph, which I'll show you in a second. And then they are also writing down number 1, whatever that possible root cause was, number 2, possible root cause. Okay, so then also if this is a continuing priority goal and you've already identified root causes, then we want to make sure that those get added to the list from the discussion that you had 3 years ago or two years ago or whatever about this priority goal. Chances are, because this is a new step in our process, chances are right now you won't have any past root causes to bring forward. But if you do, just add those in. Okay, then we're asking everybody individually now to check 1/3 of the root causes that they feel are having the most impact on this priority goal. So everybody on their papers are checking 1/3. And then we're going to the Instagraph and we're saying to people, the 1/3 that you checked, please go up and put X's or sticky dots or whatever to the right of those of the 3 that, or the take or however many they're putting up on whatever number, the 3 or whatever. Put those sticky dots up. So, and it's always going to be 1/3 of all of the responses. So, and then you can see we're starting to create the Instagraph, and it's real easy to see, why number 2 and number 4 we're probably not going to include as root causes, but number 1 and number 3 are, is what everyone thought was a root cause. Okay, and then finally we're saying, our consensus check. You may not love number 1 and number 3, but can you live with it and can you support it publicly? Okay. Then very quickly looking ahead, we're saying, okay, in our next activity, we're going to talk about activities. In our next meeting, we're going to talk about activities. So be thinking about what could our school counselors, our other educators, parents, community organizations, what could we all be doing to help address those root causes? And then bring those ideas back to the next meeting. And then that's it. Okay, let me go. I want to go online real quickly. We're kind of reaching the end of our time. And then I'll see what questions or comments we have. So I am logged in as Eastern High School, who's given us permission to demonstrate with them. So a couple things on the manual page. If I click on the manual and then scroll down to the root cause update meeting. Here's the PowerPoint, here's the root cause brainstorm sheet, or the Instagraph sheet. And then we also gave you access here. This is just a link that takes you to the report in our system of your priority goals. So you may want to pass that out. I think that would be a good idea, to pass out that report as well to the advisory council members. And then here's all the tools you need. Here's a copy of what that email looks like when it comes out, just so you can see that, and then the different posters you need and the Instagraph. Okay, so then let's look at the process tab. So in the Process tab, we kind of went through this in the PowerPoint, but I'm scrolling down to root causes. And today's webcast will be accessible here. And then this is where you can update your advisory council members' email addresses. So if I click there, that will come up and you can add it. And then clean up your advisory council too. If you've got members who are no longer members, you don't want them to get this email, so make sure you make them inactive. And then this is where you would edit the counselor's time use percentage and the student opportunities. This is data that came from the counselor survey, but that was a year ago, and we know that as schools get involved in RSC, some of that changes considerably in the year of planning. So if I click that, I get all of the responses that I put in on the survey. Chances were that these time percentages maybe were based on guesses, but now you've got data, so you may want to update those. But here's the opportunity data that we're really looking at. So we just want to go through, do all students in the school really have the opportunity to take a learning style assessment? That was what was said a year ago. And if that's not the case, then change that percentage. You can see that in one case, in a couple cases here, there's in this school there's not that opportunity. Enroll in an IB course. This opportunity is not available in the school. So some of that might have changed. And then also, be thinking, a lot of times, it's easy to say 100%, but you might want to think, does every student really have this opportunity, or is it just kids that I happen to call in to see me, or is it just kids that are taking the advanced English classes that I've gone into that classroom and talked about merit-based scholarships or whatever. So you really want this to be an accurate reflection before you send it out to your advisory council. And remember, your advisory council now, they understand all of the limits on your time by this point. So if some of these percentages are low, they're going to understand why they're low, and hopefully we'll become advocates for you. Okay, so that's that step. So we're updating the counselor time use and opportunities, and then this is the automated email. So you click on the enter. There we go. And you'll just check which sets of data do you want to include, who's the person, it's a drop-down box, who's the person that's authorizing this. Then this gives you another link where you can update the advisory council members. And then on this final step, if you click on this message, you'll be able to see the message that's going to the advisory council members. One of the things I wanted you to see is that this, in the from box in the email, is going to be the name of the person that set up the email in the system. And then the subject line is RSC pre-meeting activity. We wanted to make sure that your name appeared in the from box, because otherwise your advisory council members might think this was spam if it had my name or our organization's name. So, okay. And just a couple things, I'm going to wrap up. And then, okay, so we've talked about all that. And let's see, then you're conducting your meeting, you're entering your root causes. That's really simple. Just click on that enter button. And so you're going to enter your root causes by priority goals. So here's the school's first priority goal, and now I'm thinking, okay, what's getting in the way of that priority goal? So I just click add a root cause, and then you would say students have a written plan but do not remember that they have a plan and are not using it with decision making. Okay, So it could be something like that, or it could be we do not provide students with a template that would allow them to do their future planning. So then just the next thing we want to do is indicate if this is a knowledge issue, a personal social issue, or an opportunity issue. If we're not providing a template, it's definitely an opportunity, and then save. Okay, so that's how to enter those root causes. And then entering minutes, that's the same as always, and then let's look real quickly at the rubric. So the rubric's very simple. One or more root causes exist for each priority goal, and then the type of root cause has also been indicated. So, so pretty simple on the rubric this time. Okay, so I think that's it. Let me go back to the PowerPoint real quickly and see if there's anything else that I've missed. I think there is. That. Talked about the online system. Oh, yeah, the one important thing. Remember that your root causes, your advisory council will expect you to fix those root causes. So we want to make sure here that we don't overextend ourselves. You know, if you listed 40 root causes for one of your priority goals, then the expectation is, the assumption is that you're going to fix all those root causes. So again, your time availability needs to be a factor here. That if you're limited on time, you may want to look for just the one biggest root cause and just focus on that one, just enter that one. So, we're looking for the root causes that have the most impact, and if you don't feel that you can tackle enough root causes to impact the goal, the priority goal, then you might want to think about omitting that priority goal, because we don't want to have a goal that we're not going to have the time to fix, a priority goal. So again, your time has to be a factor in all of this discussion. And that's also a good discussion with your advisor council. The reality is we're not going to be able to fix these priority goals or these root causes because we don't have the time, and then let them be your advocates. So, okay, that sounds great. That is it. Let me see here if we have comments. I see a couple of comments here. Okay, that sounds good. And let me check hands very quickly. Not seeing any hands. Okay, so this again, I think you'll enjoy this meeting, and it's again, I look forward to talking with all the schools that are participating in the webinar next month to hear how this went. It tends to be a very engaging meeting because that data is just so many stories in it. So thanks so much for participating, and remember that you make a difference in the lives of young people. Thanks so much.